Yes, ma'am.
So I'm curious to know, it's 1:07 in the afternoon on a Thursday. Where were you going? Or where were you coming from? Drunk.
I was coming from the Navy base going to where I was living.
And why were you on the Navy base?
I was stationed there in the Navy. It was
So-
my job.
So you were working
Correct.
and you were already drunk by the time that you got from the Navy base almost home?
Correct.
So you were drinking in the car?
Yes, ma'am.
Wow. Wow.
Okay, we're about to watch another parole hearing out of the state of Connecticut for he was drinking, driving, and he greatly hurt his victim, who actually is going to come up and speak and talk about her serious injuries. I'll unpack it at the end with additional details. But with that, let's jump in.
He's serving a sentence of 5 years, execution suspended after 2.5 years, followed by 5 years probation for assault second with a motor vehicle and illegal operation of a motor vehicle under influence of alcohol or drugs. As of today, records reflect the parole eligibility date of June 10th, 2024. There is victim input in this case. There is an offender accountability plan for the offender. It has been reviewed and showed the offender has completed the following programs: the DUI program, currently educating their job, utilizing the statewide collaborative offender risk evaluation system. The offender's overall score in the SRT falls within the moderate range of risk for recidivism. So this is your opportunity to express to the board why you believe you should be granted parole. You may begin.
Good morning. I would like to start by saying that I'm truly sorry to Ms. Champion and their family for all the pain I've caused. I am disgusted by the decision I made. There is no excuse. My actions were unacceptable. I'm an alcoholic that thought I had to drink to function. The DUI program, Smart Recovery program, and AA all helped remind me how life is supposed to be. I learned how to manage emotions that previously led me to drinking, and how to control urges to drink by remembering that urges are only temporary and they can't make me do anything. When I feel urges, I will think back to all the destruction it has caused innocent people and all I have lost, including my freedom. Staying out of trouble for me means staying sober, and I believe that I can do anything that I can, and I believe that to do that with regular AA meetings and taking advantage of my support, like the VA, having my mom at home, and staying committed to my job with my dad. When I get home, I plan on going back to college, continuing my journey in AA, and becoming a Boy Scout leader so I can give back what was given to me. I never again want to feel how I did when I was drinking. Alcohol was the only thing that made me feel good, and waiting for the next drink is no way to live. I learned that I'm a hard worker and that I'm always looking to be better. I have a good life at home and one I'm not self-sabotaging. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Bell. We appreciate you writing down your thoughts and reading an opening statement for us today. You gave us some good insight into your thinking. We are going to be asking you some questions today, and when we're done with that, we will hear from Victim Services.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So, Mr. Bell, I will start with the questionings this morning. I heard you apologize to the victim, and I heard you talk about being sober and not living day to day to have a drink. You were out on bond for about 18 months prior to being sentenced?
Correct.
Okay. What were you drinking while you were out on bond?
Yes, I was.
You were. Okay. So can you talk to me a little bit about where this transformation to being a sober person occurred? And
it was a combination of things, but mostly once I actually got sober, I realized how terrible I was feeling every day, just drinking, and it kind of reminded me of how life is supposed to be, because when I was drinking, it was always just waiting for the next drink. I would stay sober at work just to go home and drink again. And when I actually got the chance to be sober, I realized how terrible a feeling that is.
okay. All right. So you've been sober now how long?
Almost a year.
Almost 1 year. And that's been
Yes.
the time that you've been incarcerated?
That is correct.
You were interviewed by the parole officer.
Yes,
And during that interview, he asked you why you decided to commit the offense. And you said you hadn't really thought about it.
yes.
Okay. It's an honest answer, I guess. Since he's asked you that question, have you given it any more thought?
Yes, definitely. I think it was just because I thought I had to drink to function, and that's, obviously not the case, but I just, I thought I had to drink to function.
And being in prison has shown you that that's not the case?
Correct.
You were in the Navy and you're no longer in the Navy, correct?
That is correct.
And were you in Connecticut while you were out on bond, or were you living in California?
I was living in California.
Okay. So you came back and turned yourself in for sentencing?
Yes, ma'am.
You completed the DUI program since you've been incarcerated, Smart Recovery, and you attend AA weekly?
Correct.
Okay. So talk to me a little bit about either Smart Recovery or the DUI program and what skills you've acquired or how that's changed your thinking so that you'll remain sober in the community. Because I have some concerns about that.
Okay, yeah. So mostly the Smart Recovery program has helped me manage my emotions and control urges I have to drink. And I think that's what's going to help me stay sober in the community. I've learned to manage my emotions by taking a step back and kind of breathing and, kind of distancing myself from whatever situation is giving me these feelings, and meditation as well. I found out meditation is super helpful, and controlling my urges, like talking it out with my sponsor or my mother, and keeping in mind that urges are only temporary. They can't really make me do anything.
Okay. And you attend AA weekly. You have a sponsor. Is that what I gathered?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. How long have you had a sponsor?
Only about 2 months now.
2 months. And what do you know about attending AA in the community?
Not much, but I know I'm going to do it because AA has been super helpful for me just to be able to share my experience, strength, and struggles with other people who have similar problems that I do.
You're 23 years old, Mr. Bell. You were 21 when the offense occurred.
Yes.
So as a 23-year-old, do you think it's reasonable that you will be able to maintain sobriety for the rest of your life?
Yes, I do. I think it's reasonable. Mostly just because I never want to end up back here in prison. And I know if I start drinking again, this is where I'll go.
So after this tragic incident, where you were drinking and driving and had a motor vehicle accident, causing great injury to the victim, why do you think you continued to drink in the community while you were out on bond? Did you make any efforts? That's sort of two-part. Did you make any efforts to try and gain some sobriety or treatment?
So I continue to drink just because it's what I felt like I had to do. And I was sent to a rehab facility, Stonington, by the Navy, but I just don't really feel like I was giving it an honest shot to stay sober when I was. And now that I feel like I actually want to, now I have an actual motivation to.
Okay. your plans for release are to go back to California,
That is correct.
and you would live with your mother at that point? Okay. Do you have any leads on employment? Would you go back to U-Haul? Is that, I have a note.
I would go back to my dad's company. We haul it all.
Okay. And tell me about what your plan for sobriety would be in the community.
So the first day I get back, I'm going to an AA meeting, and AA is my main ticket to staying sober in the community, along with keeping in contact with my sponsor, maybe getting a new one who's actually local to me.
So would that include mental health services also part of your relapse plan?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And have you looked into how you might secure those services in California?
Through the VA.
Through the VA. Okay, great. And you have a sponsor now. How did you obtain a sponsor while you were incarcerated?
They actually had me write during an AA meeting to get one.
Okay. And is that your thoughts about how you'll secure a local sponsor for yourself in California?
I'm looking to meet a local sponsor at one of the AA meetings I attend.
Okay. And were you associated with the VA services while you were living in California on
Yes, ma'am.
bond? You were, okay. So you know what you need to do and how to access. Okay. All right. Okay, Mr. Bell, thank you. I have no other questions. Ms. Page?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, Mr. Bell, the chair spoke to you briefly about the statement that you made to the officer. I believe the question was, why were you driving drunk?
Yes.
And you said, I haven't given any thought to why. Is that the way that you drove frequently?
No, it just seems so natural of a thing for me to do at the time that it wasn't really something I thought about.
Okay. So that means that you've done it on more than one occasion. This is the time that it resulted in a serious injury.
Yes, ma'am.
So I'm curious to know, it's 1:07 in the afternoon on a Thursday. Where were you going? Or where were you coming from? Drunk.
I was coming from the Navy base going to where I was living.
And why were you on the Navy base?
I was stationed there in the Navy. It was my job.
So you were working.
Correct.
And you were already drunk by the time that you got from the Navy base almost home?
Correct.
So you were drinking in the car?
Yes, ma'am.
Wow. Wow. You know, I understand, you know, that you have to drink, or you felt like you had to drink. And I also understand that, this was the first time that I actually heard you acknowledge that you were an alcoholic. And I'm glad to hear that. It sounds like you're making progress. But I struggle with people who drink and then decide to leave their house and operate a motor vehicle. But you weren't even doing that. You were drinking and literally drinking and driving. So I'm just curious to know, forgot what I was going to ask just that quickly. What your intentions are, like, you know, because alcohol is everywhere. It's on every corner almost. It's at every birthday party, weddings, every celebration. What are you going to do when you're around alcohol? How do you think you'll handle that?
Honestly, I think I'll be okay being around alcohol just because it is everywhere. And eventually I'll get used to seeing it, being around it. I mean, it might be difficult at first when I'm still getting used to it, but I feel like AA has helped me a lot and will continue to help me through my struggles.
So let me stop you because, okay, so I understand that AA will help you. However, I think avoiding kinds of situations where there will be alcohol until you're a little bit further into sobriety would be the best idea,
doubt.
in my opinion. And had you ever been sober prior to this occurring?
Briefly, when I was a teenager, yes.
And what were you doing that kept you sober, and how long did that last?
I just didn't have access to alcohol at the time. That's what kept me sober.
Okay.
And it lasted about 7-8 months.
Wow. And are you required now to have a breathalyzer, an interlock device in your car?
Yes, ma'am.
And is your license suspended?
Yes, ma'am.
For how long?
1 year, I believe.
And how long do you have to have the device in your car?
I believe 2.5 years.
And do you have a car at home?
No, I do not.
Okay. I thank you for answering my questions, Mr. Bell. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Ms. Jess?
I just have one quick question, Mr. Bell. Do you think you're ready to be sober?
Yes, ma'am, I do. I feel better than I have in a long, long time. And I also just feel so terrible about what I did. I'm never gonna drink again.
What do you think happened when the Navy sent you to rehab? What happens?
I just felt like I didn't want to be sober. That was my biggest.
You weren't ready.
Oh yeah, that was my biggest failure.
While you were out on bond, you kept drinking because you weren't ready.
Yes, ma'am.
So what makes you think that you're ready now?
Because now I don't have the desire to drink anymore. When I went to rehab and when I was out on bond, I still wanted to. And now that I actually got some time under my belt being sober, like real time, not just the month I was in rehab, now I feel like I am ready.
So you're incarcerated, and yeah, you could probably get other stuff to drink, but the decision you made is to try to be sober. So
Yes,
what happens if you walk out, say, in 2 weeks and you have this urge to drink? What do you do?
I find an AA meeting, I talk to my mother, I talk to my sponsor. I just remove myself from the situation because I know that drinking is the most destructive thing that's ever happened to me.
Okay, and I asked those questions because that was my concern, whether you are ready. And
Right.
how do you know when you're ready? Have you thought about any other groups that could assist you?
Other than Smart Recovery and AA, I can't think of anything off the top of my head.
I'm talking about when you go back in the community.
Yeah, Smart Recovery and AA definitely, but I can't think of any others off the top of my head.
Is Smart Recovery available in the community?
As far as to my knowledge, yes.
Where to find a Smart Recovery group?
I'm sorry?
Do you know where to find a Smart Recovery group?
Online somewhere.
Okay, who besides your mother, you have for support in the community?
I also have my father. He works with me. and I'm still looking to get a sponsor in my community.
Yeah, so have you looked at other programs, at the facility there that can assist you when you go back in the community? Because see, that's my concern. I don't, for me, you might think AA is enough because of your experience attending AA while you're incarcerated. I think there are, other specific groups that can be there as a support. I know you mentioned Smart Recovery, but you mentioned online.
Right, that's where I find the Smart Recovery meetings.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for answering my questions, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Chance. So, Mr. Bell, we're now going to hear from Victim Services.
Yes, ma'am.
Listen, but please don't interrupt, all right? Thank you. Mr. Jesus?
Good morning, board members. Yes, I do have the victim on the line. This is your opportunity to express to the board your wishes and your concerns. I am to remind you that you are to address the panel members only, and you may begin.
Good morning and thank you. On a sunny September day, I was driving on a Connecticut highway. This would be the day that I was struck so forcefully and explosively my vehicle was forced into pieces as I was hurtled into the woods off the side of the highway. I sustained life-threatening injuries and was left with permanent physical and emotional harm. I was extricated, removed from all of my property, med-flighted, hospitalized, and I am still enduring rehabilitation efforts. Some of the injuries have faded, but most are a permanent hurdle to overcome each and every day of my life. Faded are 2 black eyes, black and blue bruising around the back of my neck, ear to ear. My head is no longer so swollen that I am unrecognizable. I'm no longer black and blue from my waist up. What is permanent are vision issues, hearing loss, tinnitus, shattered nasal bone, which doesn't support eyeglasses, scarring about my left ear, which took significant suturing to repair, causing deformity, impacting function, neck issues with misalignment and pain, cracked teeth and tooth loss, jaw alignment issues that impact speech, eating, and swallowing. I suffered a traumatic brain injury. Many of the symptoms are still a prevalent issue in my everyday life, including dizziness, speech issues, nervous system reactions to loud noises, sudden movements in the environment, sensitivity to light, and some of my own body movement. Nausea, palpitations are also some experience in tinnitus. The metal plates in my left arm are permanent from the bone shattering impact. My range of motion and function are greatly reduced. I cannot turn my left palm to the sky. I'm now clumsy, drop things. I have lymphedema occurring more and more frequently. I can no longer use my dominant right hand in the way I once did, as the tendons in it needed to be reattached so I could use my index finger. This impacts my handwriting, but even more importantly, my ability to do art, make things, and work with my hands. My left clavicle is permanently dislocated. This reduces full use of my left shoulder and left arm. It doesn't rotate, and my lifting capacity is so greatly reduced I cannot use it the way I once did. I cannot reach fully toward the sky. The dislocated clavicle causes vascular issues and further limitations in breathing and pain. My sleep has been and is still interrupted with pain and nightmares. Still, as I roll over in my sleep to the side, my body injury sites react as if I'm in the midst of the car wreckage all over again. I wake up, heart pounding, the sweats, and the feeling of dread and peril. I feel and become more awake and relive the accident. My mid and lower back have pain issues from misalignment and continue and will be under care for the remainder of my life for the misalignment and pain issues. Every day, the issues I sustained interfere with attempted activities by way of physical disability or pain. I have been unable to return to work as a nurse. I cannot provide for myself. I cannot go to work and repair small mechanical items. I cannot return to art college and complete one of my lifelong dreams, to be an art therapist. I have been unable to return to many of the activities I love to do. My social life is declined drastically. I cannot exercise in a meaningful way, do strenuous activities that would improve my health, and just for exercise for enjoyment. I still have difficulty driving. I still suffer panic attacks. I still leave for destinations hours before needed arrival because often I use slower roadways, need to pull over to manage a panic attack, or use an alternative route due to motorist distrust. Driving is now scary, stressful, and filled with hypervigilance. The emotional impact of these losses has created profound grief, dreams that will remain unfulfilled, and I cannot plan for retirement. And I do not have the time to recover into my retirement years from all of this financial burden that's been placed upon me. Dreams that I was in the midst of, the art school, farming, they're building an art studio. They're gone. Financially, I've suffered greatly due to the above facts and ongoing costs of being forced into this condition. I still remain uncompensated for my vehicle, my art portfolio, and other sentimental property that was with me that day. I think, okay. Still at task is the recovery of payment. My vehicle and its contents went missing, and this makes me feel unsafe. I thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. We're all set, board members.
Thank you. And thank you to the victim for coming forward. We appreciate her statement in this case. So, Mr. Bell, we are now going to deliberate about your case and we'll give you our decision.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right. So the victim's statement was very impactful. She has lifelong injuries that she will be trying to deal with. It's changed her whole career path, no longer being able to work as a nurse. Mr. Bell, although I do think that he's made some progress, I still think that he's got some work to do on his sobriety. I'm concerned that after the accident, while out on bond, he continued to drink despite going to treatment. I'm also concerned that his only sober time is while he's been incarcerated. I don't want to take away from that because, as Ms. Chance said, I'm sure he could get something, but he's chosen to be sober, and we want to recognize that. He has military experience, which we also want to recognize and thank him for. From review of the file, Mr. Bell also struggles with some mental health issues, which seem to have been addressed following the accident, which I think will benefit him long-term in the community. He does have support in the community and does employment. However, based on some of his responses during the parole interview, I'm not really sure that Mr. Bell has done all he needs to do to be rehabilitated, to be back in the community. I think there's still some parts of his sobriety that he needs to work on and get stronger. So at this time, I would not be in favor of granting his parole. Ms. Page?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Bell is extremely young, and I get a sense that he's overly confident that he has a handle on this, especially since he's been struggling with it for such a long time. And I commend him. It's great to think, I have this all under control. But the fact of the matter is, there is going to come a time where it's going to be
hard as I don't know what to kind of maintain sobriety because stress and loss and grief and all those things are so prevalent in our lives. I'm hoping that he's developed some more coping skills. I say that to say that he has a support in the community. I'm looking on the website right now, and it looks as if there's a civil matter pending because he didn't even have insurance on that car. That poor lady, she's out of work. So I mean, it's such a tremendous loss. And I honestly am of the opinion that 30 months of incarceration is far more than reasonable amount of time for Mr. Bell, given the travesty that this lady has had to endure. So for me, I too am not willing to support Mr. Bell's request for discretionary parole, and I will be voting as such.
Ms. Chance?
So, my areas of concern has to do with the fact that, and so it's not to repeat what was said already. He was out on bond and still drinking, so his ability to have control on his behavior is not there yet. And most concerning is his release plan. I think he needs to have a strong release plan because all those other times when he's been out there, it just hasn't worked for him. And, I heard the victim, and the impact of what has happened to her is so serious. It has completely changed the way that she's going to live the rest of her life. And being given 2.5 months, I think is reasonable. I would not be in favor of his discretionary parole today. I see that as I just see him as a public safety risk. So,
Okay, so injury and impact to the victim and
Nature and
circumstances. Okay. So in matter of Matthew Bell, inmate number 443712, there is a motion to deny discretionary parole for the following reasons: nature and circumstance of the current offense, injury and impact to the victim. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Mr. Bell, we were unable to vote you to parole today. That's not to say that you haven't done a lot to work on yourself and make yourself rehabilitated, but we do think that you need to explore more about remaining sober in the community and working towards a life of sobriety. Okay?
Yes,
Okay. So best of luck.
thank you.
You're welcome.
This concludes the hearing for Matthew Bell, inmate number 4437131.
It never ceases to amaze me when you get these DUI cases, how they all appear, so many of them appear to just be like these lizard humanoid type of people. So many people get in the car and drink and terrible things happen. But what never ceases to amaze me is that how is it possible that we see so many of these parole interviews where they just seem to be lacking basic human empathy? It's really strange because it feels like it can't be such a statistical anomaly. How is it that we don't see these parole hearings where someone is actually genuinely destroyed by the damage that they caused? I mean, yeah, he mentioned in his opening remarks about the victim, but you would have no sense of what he had done to her in that opening remark. I mean, he's just sitting there and keep in mind, he has spent less than 1 year locked up. The judge gave a 5-year sentence, of which half of it was suspended. The maximum amount of time that he's going to spend in prison is 2 years and 6 months. You know, he was sentenced 4/18/2023, and he had this parole hearing like March of 2024, not even a year. Can you imagine he's having a parole hearing? He hasn't even been sober 1 year. It's hard to make this stuff up. What judge would feel in the mood? Explain this to me. What judge would give a man a suspended sentence so that it would work out that he would have a parole hearing less than 1 year before his sobriety date? A man who was drinking while he was waiting his sentencing. How is that possible? You would think that a judge would say, wait a minute, you basically nearly take this woman's life. It's a miracle she's alive. You alter the course of her life forever. You don't even have insurance, so this poor woman can't even get the financial, at least some type of financial relief. And then the judge says, I'll suspend your sentence, 2 years, 6 months maximum, but up for parole after 1. And maybe, you know, the judge in the legislation can't control when parole eligibility exists. That could be a part of it. But why suspend the sentence? Like, what leniency is allowed here? And they would say, well, maybe this judge is normally so lenient he wouldn't have gotten any prison time. And so he gave him 5 years. He threw the book at him. Okay, so I decided to take a peek, and it looks like maybe this judge. So it looks like the legislation doesn't require any jail time for this type of offense, is the way I'm understanding it. So it seems that the judge added the jail time without any minimum requirement from the state. So this is what he was guilty of, is 53A. And again, and thank you, Richard, for putting this all those notes in there. And 50 means what you're guilty of is assault, second degree motor vehicle when while operating the motor vehicle under the influence of intoxicated liquor cause physical injury to another person as a result of the liquor or drug. And then it says that what they're required to do is really just suspended license for 1 year and an interlocking device for 2 years. So require court to track a person found guilty not to operate any vehicle that is not equipped with an approved ignition interlock device for a period of 2 years after restoration of their license. And it says that the license is suspended for 1 year. I don't see any mention of prison time at all. So it could be that had he not drinking during his pre-sentencing period, that he wouldn't have gotten any prison time, and the judge giving him 5 years with half of it suspended was throwing the book at him. Maybe it does add context that there's no minimum, but it's scary. It really is. I mean, again, think about it. He alters her life, and when he's asked in the pre-parole hearing report, have you thought about it? He's like, nah, I haven't thought about it. Have you thought about why you drink? Nah. And it's like, just the way he said it. It just really felt like there's just no care in the world for what he had caused that poor woman. And I'm so grateful that she came up here to speak. But can you imagine even speaking when you find out that the person who did that to you, it's up for parole after just serving 1 year. Think about how scary it is to have someone like this on the road. He's been locked up less than a year. It's something interesting about this as well is I searched Matthew. I was curious. Richard does great research, but I wasn't sure if Richard had looked at had seen this recording yet. So I Googled it, and Matthew Bell for Connecticut in just the past 3 years showed up on 3 searches for DUI accidents, either being hit, being on the wrong side of it, or hit and for fatal. Like that's a cursed name apparently for DUIs, or it's just a really popular name. But our Matthew Bell was not shown anywhere in the news. But man, there's just something with these cases. There's just something that just never ceases to amaze me with how someone can act this way. But anyways, also the whole thing about thank you for your service. In this case, I don't think he deserves a thank you for your service. It's like, yeah, he couldn't even make it through. Please, driving and drinking in the car on his way to work. It's just so selfish. It's so sick. Again, it's like one thing. It's like there are people who get drunk at the bar, and then now they're not thinking straight, and they get in the car. But in his situation, he's going from work with the booze, so he's making that decision to do it because he can't wait to get home. Anyways, that I'll let you go.